Alrighty, good evening, everyone. My name is Dexter Peralta. I am the Neighborhood Affairs Coordinator for North Beach. Thank you for joining us at today's public meeting regarding the Normandy Isle traffic calming update project, or project update, I should say. Today's meeting will be focusing mainly on an update on the project or where we're at, as well as a focus on the impacted, on a couple impacted parking spaces. With us today, we have Othniel Rodriguez. He is the Assistant Director for Transportation Department. Ghassan Shuri, he is the Senior Transportation Engineer overseeing the project as well with our transportation team. Franklin Bartley Jr., he is the Transportation Engineer working on this project. And Leonte Alemonte from our consultant team, he is also the Principal Engineer. We will have a section of Q&A towards the end of the meeting, so we'll take your questions at a later time. And with that, we'll kick it off with transportation.
Good evening, everyone. This is Franklin. I'm the project manager of the Normandy Isle Traffic Calming Project. I'll be sharing my screen. Give me a moment while I try to share my screen. Dexter, do you mind sharing it? Because I currently can't.
Sure, give me 1 second. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Go ahead, Franklin.
Okay, so today we'll be sharing our presentation on the Normandy Isle Traffic Calming Project. This is a GeoBond 42 project, and this presentation is currently to the Normandy Isle neighborhood. So on our agenda today, we'll be covering the background information, the design methodology. Then we'll move on to the traffic calming study and the survey results. And then we'll talk about the main point of this presentation is the parking impacts by the proposed design. And then we will present our schedule and we'll open it up to any questions. So this right here is a study area. We focused on the south side of Normandy Isle. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this was a GeoBond funded project. The selection criteria for this was that the Normandy Isle neighborhood was chosen because of its unique characteristics, its geographic conditions, and all of its multimodal needs, and also a couple other selection factors. This one underwent a rigorous approval process by the GeoBond Advisory Committee, and it subsequently received a approval by the City Commission. Finally, the voters endorsed this project in 2018. The Normandy Isle Traffic Calming Project is a project that currently aims to enhance the safety and the accessibility within the neighborhood, and to address specific needs such as improving the speeding and the cut through the neighborhood. So right here, we've started off the project methodology already. We are currently, we've already analyzed the historic traffic patterns within the network. We also carried out on-site visits to evaluate the existing field conditions. We've created initial design concepts and proposed improvements. And then we also created a opinion of a probable cost based off of these preliminary design development. Next slide. After this, we had to evaluate the improvements based off of the speeds, volume data, and anticipated effectiveness of each traffic calming device. And we also included budgetary constraints. We further developed these plans to 30%. Once we received the 30% plans, we then took these devices to the community, and we surveyed each directly impacted resident. We engaged the residents with a survey which was to include a yes or no vote. As per the City of Miami Beach Traffic Calming Manual, we are to receive 2/3 of approval from a majority of the residents in order to move forward with the entire project. In addition to that, each resident that is directly impacted must approve 100%. So with this, these would include residents that are affected by a speed table, which would be the 2 residents directly across from the speed, adjacent to the speed table. And when it comes to the raised crosswalks, that would be the directly impacted residents adjacent to those devices as well. And when it comes to devices that are located at the intersections themselves, such as raised crosswalks or traffic circles, those would need to have congruency from all 4 residents at all 4 corners of the respective intersections. And those who neglected to respond within the specific time frame were included as a yes vote. We finalized the traffic calming device designs. The traffic calming device designs are approved by the residents, and from those specific devices, those are devices that we are moving forward with. We are currently nearing completion of 90% design submission, and we already received comments back from our 60% design, and we are currently implementing them into our 90% submittal. Next slide. So this right here is a traffic calming map of all of our devices that were proposed. As you can see here, all of the devices that are labeled in green have been approved, and all of the devices that are labeled in red have currently been opposed. These devices are opposed. We are currently not moving forward with these devices. We are moving forward with the devices that are currently labeled in green. Next slide. So our goal with during the design process was to create the most strategic balance between traffic calming while minimizing impacts on street parking in the neighborhood. This presentation will focus on the traffic calming devices that impact on-street parking. I'll turn it over to our design consultant, Leo Almonte from Kimley Horn.
Thank you, Franklin. Let me just make a switch on the screens so that I have control on this portion of the presentation. So it's telling me that you need to stop sharing before I share.
Yep, give me 1 second. Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Okay, please let me know once you guys can see the screen.
We're good. Yep. Oh.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So again, my name is Leon Almonte. I'm with Kimley Horn. So in the next set of slides, I'm going to be walking you through those devices that we are installing that have a direct impact on parking. As mentioned by Franklin, the city and our design team spent a good amount of time analyzing each location to minimize impacts to parking. The city completely understands how important they are to the community. At the same time, with the intent of moving the project forward, some of these devices do have some impacts at several locations. We performed several field visits to kind of assess the best placement for these devices, in addition to criteria that we have to meet in order to place them throughout the neighborhood. So we're going to begin with Bay Drive. So what you're looking at right now first is, if we think of the existing condition along Bay Drive, is mainly the one-way segments with angled and parallel parking, 12-foot travel lanes for the most part, and the proposed devices that are impacting parking throughout this street are the traffic circle and around 3 speed tables that we are proposing. So in this particular location, what you're looking at is basically an enhanced view of how the roundabout is going to look once it is done. One thing that we wanted to take the time to show also is the impacts that it will have, and this has to do with the geometry that we need to build in order for the traffic calming, the roundabout, to be effective. So the estimated parking spaces that will be lost are around 12 parking spaces. These are mainly located in this general area, as well as a couple on this side. Again, there's the enhanced view on how this will look once the project is constructed, but it was important for the city to explain to the community that this carries mainly the impacts on these particular parking spaces as well. So just to show another view of the general area, this is basically the area in question. Okay. The first set of speed tables that we have, this one is between 71st Street and Rue Granville. In this particular location, we have an estimated 4 parking spaces that are being lost. When we did the field business for this, we were trying to find locations where there were already some of these aisles that divide the sets of angle parking, and that also met criteria regarding the spacing of the speed tables. But even taking that into account, still some reductions in parking were needed. And this is one of them. And again, in this location, we have 4 estimated parking spaces that were lost. The next one is from Brest Esplanade, and this is the speed table. This one is between Rue Versailles and Brest Esplanade. In this particular location, we have an estimated 4 parking spaces that are being lost due to the traffic calming devices that are getting installed. In this particular location, it's a similar approach. As you can see here, we have the speed tables getting installed with around 4 parking spaces being lost due to the impacts of the speed table. Then from here, we move to Biarritz Drive. So in this area, basically the parking is around 90-degree parking that is located on the south side. The corridor is mainly divided into 3 segments with cul-de-sacs that are there mainly to deter cut-through traffic. Proposed devices in this area are the speed table. In this particular location, mainly is between 71st Street and Rue Granville. That's where this location is being proposed. And we have an estimated 3 parking spaces that will be impacted by the installation of the speed table. From here, we'll move to Calais Drive. It's a 2-way road with angle parking. We understand the parking utilization is on the high side throughout this area. Another reason that we wanted to have this additional presentation to convey to the public the impacts that we're having throughout. At the same time, there is a high incidence of speeding throughout the corridor. So devices that have impacts on parking, there's a speed table that has impacts on them as well. So this one is between Granville and Trouville Esplanade. We have a total of 4 parking spaces that are getting impacted by this traffic calming device. Okay. This particular location is just to the east of Rue Granville, and it has an estimated 4 parking spaces that will be impacted. Moving along to Marcel Drive. It's a 2-way road with angle parking. Parking utilization is also high. At the same time, we do have high speeding that occurs throughout this segment. Devices that are having an impact on parking are speed tables, raised crosswalks, as well as the traffic circle. And what you're looking in this particular case is a rendering of how this will look in the final condition. For some reason, when we felt this is a view that you can see, that the other one was a little bit distorted, wanted to make sure that we're presenting to you the proper ratio of how the traffic circle will look at this particular location. This one is can be a little bit challenging to understand, as the parking in this area was also a combination of some that were illegal from current standards, even though they're demarcated right now. The total loss in this area is of 11 parking spaces. This is a raised crosswalk. This one is located it's at the intersection of Marcel and Rubesels Drive. It is estimated that 1 parking space will be lost at this location. The next intersection is Marcel Drive and Bay Drive intersection. No existing crosswalks for pedestrians in the area. There is very low compliance with existing traffic control devices. There's speeding. That's something that our team observed, especially from people that are coming down from the bridge as we were doing our field visits. Devices that have an impact on the parking are the traffic circle and pedestrian crosswalks that are getting installed to improve the pedestrian safety. So you have this is how the traffic circle will look once it gets built. And in this location, I want to zoom in a little bit more here so that you can see the count. We have an estimated 23 parking spaces that will be eliminated due to installation of the traffic circle. And with that, I'm handing it over again to Franklin.
Okay, so following our design schedule, do you mind sharing your screen again?
Yeah, give me 1 second, Franklin.
Okay.
Wait. There we go. Go ahead, Franklin.
Thank you, Dexter. So following our design schedule, we are currently approaching our 90% design. We aim to finalize our design in the summer of 2024. And then we aim to begin construction in the fall of 2024. So our key next steps are to achieve the 100% design completion, and then secure the county approval for our 100% design plan. And then from there, once we receive the permit set approved by the county, we will transition our project over to capital improvement projects, our CIP department here at the city. And they will commence the construction procurement process. And from there, they will be able to determine when their start date officially would be for the construction and an effective schedule. So I'll turn it over to Dexter for our Q&A section.
All right, just before Dexter opens it up to Q&A, I just wanted to reiterate a little bit on the presentation is that yes, there is the reason why we're having this meeting with the community. It's in full transparency. We wanted to let everybody know that although the traffic calming is very much needed in the neighborhood, unfortunately there'll be some impact to parking. We do understand, and we also want to make you guys aware that when we were going through the design process of this project, we wanted to find the right balance of having the traffic calming devices required in order to achieve the goal of slowing down traffic, and at the same time minimizing as much as possible the loss of parking. And with that, we can open it up to questions. Dexter.
Thank you, O'Neill. And just a quick moment, because I didn't see him at the beginning. Just want to recognize we have Commissioner Tanya K. Ba, as well as Commissioner Laura Dominguez joining us on the call today. Thank you, Commissioners, for joining us. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the questions. Actually, Commissioner Ba, you're the first one up.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to see this conversation start. I would love to get a copy of this presentation when you have a chance. I understand there has to be a balance between traffic calming and parking, but I will tell you in North Beach, we are at crisis when it comes to parking. So I know this is something I've been working on with the Director of Parking, Director Beltran. We haven't found solutions yet for alternate sites of parking, but I beg you, there's going to be uproar in the community, and I don't want us to lose the benefits of the important benefits and public safety benefits of traffic calming because of the parking situation. So, maybe it's conversations in a little bit of a smaller way with some key stakeholders, maybe folks who have underutilized lots that we can revisit who had initially said thanks but no thanks. But what is the total of the parking spots lost? It's got to be close to 50, if not more. I don't know if you have that at your fingertips.
Leo, you have that, or you want me to say?
I don't have the actual count. We can add up. You can tally up with that, but it's going to be north of 50 parking spaces throughout the entire.
So I will tell you that the dozen or so in front of the King Cole, which is 900 Bay Drive, we're going to need to let that, which happens to be where I live. The residents don't have an issue because everybody is parking there, but it's used during the day for contractors. So that is a discussion that I would suggest you raise with the building well in advance so that they can plan to make those accommodations. But the issue becomes at night, the rest of the neighborhood uses those parking spots to park their cars. I literally was walking my dog this morning and a neighbor stopped me on the street and was talking about the fact that she'll come home from work tonight at 8 o'clock and won't be able to park anywhere within a mile of her home. So, it is a challenging issue when we're trying to improve our city and we have limited space. So we need to think very creatively about what is going to happen with parking. The 72nd Street Community Complex is going to go under construction soon. That's going to eliminate hundreds of parking spots. And we need to think about this holistically. What can we do as a city to be proactive to secure temporary parking while these projects are underway, and then permanent parking to replace the spots? And I've got an item on the agenda about buying an underutilized parking structure, but that's a mile away from where these folks live. But we need to think about how to handle this. And I don't know what the answer is now, but again, and I'm not trying to stall this project in any way, but the notion of being, kind of cavalier about we're losing 50 parking spots in a neighborhood where there isn't even close to enough parking as it is, we need to think a little differently about this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So, Commissioner, to give you the response, currently, at the stage that we are with the plans, it is estimated that 69 spaces will be impacted.
Yeah, that's a huge hit for this neighborhood. And again, I don't want to derail this, but we need to find creative, out of the box solutions to this And just because we haven't been successful so far doesn't mean that we can just let this go.
I just wanted to mention, Commissioner, that, you know, even though we had a public meeting in the past for this project, the Transportation Department felt very strongly that this was such a major impact that we wanted to have this communication with the public, because the Transportation Department understands how the community feels about parking. That was the main purpose of having this meeting.
No, and I appreciate that. And, you know, one of the challenges is that unlike other parts of the city, we up in North Beach don't have a lot of strong homeowners associations. So there is not a big organization of people getting residents together and thinking creatively about solutions. I don't know if you know how many people are on this call, but I would venture it's not nearly as many as need to be, because they're going to be affected by this and don't have a voice in the conversation.
And Commissioner, we'll continue to explore different ideas and we have that commitment from ourselves, from the department, that we're going to do everything in our power to minimize the number of the impact that the parking would have to the community. And we'll be more than happy to follow up with your office to provide you with an update on where we're at with this.
Yeah, maybe we can circle back tomorrow and schedule something with a bunch of state, city departments that could be working on this, because when I started working on the parking issue, that was before knowing that there were an additional 70 spots or so that were going to be taken off the table. So we need to refocus on this.
Yeah, and Commissioner, as O'Neill mentioned, as part of the process, right, we balloted, right, these properties that were directly impacted by the traffic circles. But as you mentioned, if there's people that are not right in front of it that are using it, I think we all can use your help in helping us with that coordination and connecting with those other stakeholders.
Perfect. Happy to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move forward with our next question. That is with Josh. Josh, do you hear us? Alrighty. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward. If Josh can join us later, we'll move forward with Jessica Prince.
Should date for him to be with the board?
Hey, appreciate that, Dexter. You know what? I missed your question, but I do have an engaged board here. Did you have something for us?
No, Josh, you had your hand raised. This is Josh from Normandy Shores, correct?
It is. Nice to see you again, Dexter.
You.
You know what? I raised that hand earlier. Just wanted to make sure we were on mute because there was some talking in the background from our side, but I think we're okay.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much, Josh. No worries.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it.
Jessica Prince, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me? I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
you can.
I think will you unmute, Ms. Prince?
Yes.
There we go.
Back to be
Okay.
unmuted. Okay.
Very good.
I live at 900 Bay Drive. Can you hear me?
Yes, go
Saw
ahead.
my picture before. Okay. I live in 900 Bay Drive with Tanya K-Bot, and thank you for the presentation. I've lived in this building since 2016. I received no ballot. I received no information, and I am telling you, I am against a traffic circle in front of 900 Bay Drive. Losing that many parking spaces is not feasible. There is not as much, I don't know what you would consider to be speeding, but with all of the trucks that are double parked, and I walk my dog 5 times a day crossing that street where the stop sign is, and I'll admit that most people don't stop at that stop sign, but a traffic circle will only serve to make people more confused, and I think there will be more incidents of cars hitting people or bicycles in a traffic circle. I think that putting in speed bumps, I think you had a different name for them, is a great idea, but they should not, because they don't affect the look of Normandy Island, which was built in 1926. It's a historic island, and traffic circles will only serve to ruin what was beautifully designed. I think a stop sign with a flashing light around it might be helpful. Speed bumps, definitely. But a traffic circle, particularly in front of 900 Bay Drive, is a mistake. And I want you all to know that if you think that people have been balloted, they have not. I'm a very engaged citizen here, and I have not heard of this. So with all due respect, I would hope that something can be done to change that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prince. So one thing that I wanted to mention, and that is that, and so you had a couple of items, or several items that we want to touch on at least. So as was mentioned with the commissioner, definitely there's going to be a re-engagement with at this particular location with residents as well as people that are stakeholders, even though they may not live directly in front of the area impacted. So that's the number one item that we wanted to touch on. Second, regarding reaching out to you and Franklin, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the approach of the city took at this particular location, because it was a building, right? The ballots were sent to the HOA, basically, so that they could take the pulse of the building and provide us a response. And from what I remember, and Franklin can double check on this, please, for this particular location, it came as a positive vote in support of the traffic circle. That's what we received. I'm not trying to say that you were in favor of it, but that was the response that we received from the HOA, unless I'm mistaken. But again, we will re-engage as proposed by the commissioner with this particular area. So that's on item number 2. Item number 3, regarding the safety, what I will tell you is that traffic circles are actually one of the devices that the Federal Highway Administration has as part of a mitigation device when it comes to safety measures, because they drastically reduce not only the occurrence of accidents, but even when accidents occur, they are way less severe, because traffic circles is what we call now, when you have, let's say, the case of a stop sign or a yield sign, basically those are compliance. People need to comply with them. They typically need to be enforced. Now, with the traffic circle, the benefit is that they are what we call safety by design. The way that they are designed, that they were laid out, they force vehicles to have to shift and basically come to a speed that is comfortable for them to enter the roundabout. So that's the benefit of traffic circles. It's being heavily analyzed. So that's on those 3 main items. I'm not going to get into the discussions of the perception of the corridor. The design was intended for the traffic calming needs of the corridor and to blend it with the current conditions that we have out there. But again, your comment has been noted, and I'm certain you'll be involved in the upcoming coordinations that we'll have at this location. That's
Thank
what we.
And Ms. Prince, also, we're gonna follow back, as we do have records on the ballots that were sent out and the answers that we did receive. So we're gonna go through those and confirm what was the answer for this particular location. We'd be more than happy to get back to you on that one. If you can please share your information with either myself or Dexter, that way we have it on record, and then we could definitely get back to you. And like Leo said, continue the dialogue and continue to find more creative ideas of how to better, if that is a concern for this particular location for the circle, how we can find a better alternative for traffic.
Yeah, thank you. The issue is the parking, and it has to be balanced with what benefit it gets. And has there been how many accidents have been at that intersection over the last 3 years?
Yes.
I don't have the data on that particular one. I think that's something that we have to get back to you. Now, what we were looking at when, there's a study that the city prepared to come up with devices that were going to be recommended. And it was not only on accidents, but also on the traveling speeds that were measured throughout the corridor. So it's actually both.
I
But-
also want to let you know that the management of our building over the last 5 years has gone through significant changes year over year over year. So I think it would be wise to ask the residents or re-engage with the HOA because it's not been consistent.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback,
Thank-
Ms. Prince.
Thank you.
If I can jump in again, please, this is Tanya again. So everything that Jess said is 100% correct. And we can take this offline, but if you can connect me and Jess and you guys on an email to talk about this further, I don't want to derail the entire conversation with the rest of the neighborhood. But this is a very weird set of circumstances, and we probably need to revisit this building and have a more detailed conversation offline.
Perfect.
We'll do that, Commissioner Bott.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Alrighty, we'll move forward with Richard Steinberg.
Good evening. I guess same building, and hello, Tanya. Hello, Jessica. I'm Richard Steinberg, and I can tell you that I'm relatively, I try to keep an eye on what's going on in the city, and this is the first time I've heard a bit about this project. I also live at 900 Bay Drive, and the only reason I know about it is because it was included in a weekly bulletin from our building. I've never seen a single outreach from the city. I would think that something that was this significant in an area that has a shortage of parking, that there would be more of an effort, either by mail or otherwise. I know I've got an office on 41st Street, and when the city's considered doing things there, they've actually mailed out notices to the owners of property there, but there has been no such outreach in this area. And I'm significantly concerned, as the commissioner is, about the multifamily areas. I assume that for the most part in the single family home area on this side of the island, there probably isn't a significant parking shortage, but I'd be surprised if you were to go into the areas that you're talking about taking parking after midnight and able to find 60 spaces, anything near 60 spaces available in that entire area to park in after midnight, when all the commercial establishments are pretty much closed, when everybody on an on-street parking spot is a resident rather. And as far as the building, I question, and maybe you can tell me this, when you hold people, if a notice was sent to the building, did you advise them that they would be losing the loading zone in front of the King Cole if they voted yes? Or was it just, here's a picture of a traffic calming circle in the street, and are you okay with the traffic calming circle in the street without understanding the parking impact by allowing it?
So Mr. Steinberg, when we do the balloting process, it's very preliminary as to what device is going to be proposed right there at that particular location. So so the intent is for the balloting is to ascertain whether the adjacent property is in favor or not of a particular device. At that point in time, we really did not know what the particular impact about that particular device will have on parking, which is why now, once we were able to continue and move forward with design, we were able to come up with what that final number, that impact would be, and then had this community meeting with all of you to bring it to your attention. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, it kind of does. So the person, if someone checked the box yes and sent that back in for 900 Bay Drive, they did so with absolutely no information that it would impact the loading zone in front of the building. Is that correct?
So
Go ahead, Leo.
So what I was going to say, Mr. Steinberg, a couple of things. So number one, this is I believe this is the second meeting that we have for this project. The first one was in January of last year. Dexter can confirm that.
Yes, that is correct.
And at that time, right, the concept that was presented for this particular location, and a count of how many parking spaces were going to be lost was not presented, but it was stated that parking spaces were going to be lost. And a similar design to what we have was shown. Of course, that was at that stage preliminary. It has morphed as we got into design more, but that was indeed presented. Now, I'm not going to argue with you if you were not invited, you were not informed about that particular one, but the meeting did take place, and the communication in this case, it was sent to the HOA of the building, so that they will manage for the entire building the communication about this particular item. And again, because the city understood that this was such a major impact, that is the reason that we're having this meeting today. It wasn't just, well, we already had a public meeting, we already got a ballot that said that it was okay to remove it. The city felt strongly about this particular item that we knew that the community needed to be informed again and show you the actual numbers of these many parking spaces are going to be lost. That's why we're here today. So the comments that you are making is exactly the reason that we're presenting this today. So trust that your voice is being heard, and it's not going to end just here.
I appreciate that, and maybe and I don't know if there's a way to change the diameter of that circle and a way to create the traffic calming that you want without having the impact on the parking that it's creating. Presumably, if you have a smaller circle, it may not have to go as far, and therefore you may be able to accomplish both the parking and the traffic circle. I'm curious, though, and maybe you can send it to me another time. Is what analysis was done to really show there was speeding, and if there was speeding, is it based merely on the posted? Because I think it's technically a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone or 15 miles on the street. It's a low speed limit that was reduced a number of years ago from what was the more standard 30 or 35, probably 30. It was brought down. So I think if you're comparing to 20, maybe cars were going 22, 25, but I don't know that there's a major speeding issue through the the multifamily portion of Bay Drive that would justify taking all those spots away. And I guess you didn't answer the question before. What analysis was done to show that there was a capacity to lose parking spaces, especially for the residents overnight?
So what was presented at the time was basically the concepts that we developed for, the recommendation that we received was that a traffic circle was needed at this location as a traffic.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you,
okay.
was there any analysis, for example, did someone go through the multifamily neighborhood at 12:30 at night on a weekday night to count how many vacant spots there were to say, we can afford to take away this number of spots because, they're empty anyway, in a sense? Or did you go through and say, gosh, every spot is taken. We need to realize that this is really going to have an impact. What analysis was done to show what the usage was of the parking by the residents in this neighborhood?
So coordination we've been having, because remember, parking is administered by the parking department. So this project since the beginning has been coordinated with the parking department so that they know the impacts that this project will have, right? So that's been the process that we've been following.
Was
so
any
far.
Analysis, you said you analyzed speed, et cetera. Did you analyze parking at all, or that was not analyzed? There was no specific analysis of that?
What you're calling for will be like a parking utilization analysis, and that was not done by us as part of this project. That was not the scope of this item. Again, coordination with the parking department has been ongoing since the beginning, because that's the department that is basically making the final determination on the impacts and how other opportunities can be created for parking.
Okay, and Laura and Tanya, I guess, assuming Laura's still here, just a food for thought for you guys from a policy standpoint. When you've got areas that when the city's sending out notice and they're condominiums, I don't think you can assume that by sending a single notice to the management office or to whoever's on record for the condo association, that it reaches the residents. I don't think that's really fair to your citizens to assume that they're finding out about what's going on in their neighborhood simply by, and it may be a long-standing policy, but it may be something, as a commissioner that one of you may want to look into and perhaps broaden that to make sure that the actual unit owners find out about these things as opposed to having to rely on management as to whether or not they forward it.
Yeah, Richard, this is Tanya. This is something I've been working on with the city on a number of issues over the last couple of years. I'm going to go in to see what the standard operating procedure is, because it's not just HOAs, but it's also, the folks who own the unit versus the people who are actually living in it. So it's a bigger issue. I know we've tackled it for particular outreach initiatives, but I'm going to double check to make sure that it is now standard operating procedure that it goes to residents, not HOAs.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And
Yep.
hang on, I was taking notes while he was doing his presentation. I just want to make sure I hit all of them. Oh, also, you just said when you were answering Jessica's question about traffic circles being a good means to, create a physical traffic calming measure. I do wonder though, when you have pedestrian traffic as well as you do here, you've got a lot of people that have dogs in our building, for example, that walk across the street to walk their dogs. And I just question whether traffic circles with pedestrian traffic is necessarily a safer measure. It may not be, maybe, I don't know the information on that, but that may be something that you, Tanya, or someone else may want to look at to see whether that's actually fits in the as-built environment here versus some other measure that may be less impactful or not create risk for pedestrians. And the other question I had is, I know that although I know the city is a little bit behind on that scheduling, but there is at some point the desire or the expectation is that the roads here are going to be elevated. We do have flooding in this area, and it hasn't happened yet. So it kind of seems odd to me that the city would spend city dollars to go in and do all this, the stuff above ground, only to a hopefully not too many years from now go in and tear it up to address sea level rise. And so I wonder what's being done to coordinate the future sea level rise project with this, so that we don't have, so we're not wasting money.
So one thing that I can tell you is the efforts related to sea level rise throughout Miami Beach are mainly led by the Public Works and Resiliency Department. They've been engaged in the project since the beginning as well. Now, a project of the scale of raising the roads is something that goes way beyond the scope of this current project as well. So that is not part of the scope of this project.
No, I know it's not part of
Especially-
it. My concern is merely spending the money doing this and then 3 years later ripping it all out and having to redo it again just doesn't seem, like a good use of funds. If that project is coming forward to address the sea level rise, then perhaps this should be either incorporated within it or done after it and not done ahead of it, so that the city has to do the work twice.
So, Mr.
Correct.
Steinberg, you're certain that it's going to be in 3 years? It's just
No,
because I haven't heard.
I'm throwing out a number just
Oh, okay.
out in there. I don't know. I said
Okay.
before, I don't know the scheduling of it. I know
Okay.
it's something that, that this is an area that is indicated. And at one point there was an engineering analysis that broke it into different priorities. And I don't remember where. I know that this area was not the first priority, but I don't know what priority it was and where the city is on that pecking list right now.
Sure.
So I know
Miss-
that it was an area that was deemed as an area that needed to be addressed. And I just am raising the issue, and it may be more for Tanya than it is for you, that there should be some coordination between departments to avoid a situation where work is done and a few years later, or 4 or 5 years later, whatever it is, that it's being ripped out to address sea level rise, when it probably should have been coordinated from the onset, and the neighborhood shouldn't have gone through construction twice. And then my final point, which is similar to what Jessica and Tanya both raised, is the building's parking is a loading zone during the day. The building cannot accommodate a lot of those trucks that are there. That they won't fit in the garage. It'll be very difficult to get them in. It's going to be literally impossible for them to do that. So I don't even understand how the building would operate and construction would occur within units and otherwise if that loading zone goes away. I mean, the building has relied on that loading zone since the inception of the buildings in the 60s. So it's stunning to me that someone would have said yes, check the box on yes, had they had any understanding of what it would do, because it really will cripple the building.
Understood. And Mr. Steinberg, this is Dexter chiming in. So regarding the raising the roads, I'll check with Amy Knoll. She is the Chief Resiliency Officer. She's part of our environmental team. As Leo mentioned, we coordinate amongst, this is not just a transportation, it is a transportation project, but we coordinate with all departments, whether it's public works or environmental. So I'll check with Amy to see where we're at with the raising of the roads. I work really closely with environmental. I sort of do their PIO work as well. For the entire city, I haven't heard of a raising of the roads coming even within the next 3 or 5 years. I know it's just a hypothetical, but that's something that will be taken into account, when we do these projects. So I'll check again. I'll check with Amy to see where we're at, and I can provide you that response when I'll work with it on it with O'Neill. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Alrighty, we'll move forward with Ms. Paula King.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Paula. How are you?
Very good. Listen, I live in North Beach. I've been around North Beach for many years. I cross Normandy Island almost every day. I want to know, number one, is the addition of 10,000 units in North Bay Village. Has that been taken into account when making these traffic calming plans? Number two is, are the 4,000 units in our town center taking into account? Because my thoughts are we're going to want to move people quickly through Normandy. Number two is, have you talked to economic development? Because there seems to be sort of a grassroots movement in Normandy. They have great new restaurants there. They have little pubs. They have, wonderful things happening on Normandy. But to take away I go over there on Friday night. I don't take my car. I take my bike because there's absolutely no parking around Normandy Fountain or in the neighborhoods. So to take away 70 spaces is just beyond bad idea. I live in Biscayne Beach. What I did here, or what we've done, I'm the president of the neighborhood association, is we took the area around a pumping station that was here and turned it into a parking lot. And there was 30 plus 30 spaces. I'm sure there are some city-owned surface lots that could be converted, but to take I have a friend that lives on the west side of Normandy, and she says people walk over the bridge from North Bay Village to park on Normandy. And that when she gets home from her job at 11 o'clock at night, she has no parking, absolutely none. People plan their weekend based on parking in Normandy already. So I can't imagine taking away 70 parking spaces without finding an alternative to those parking spaces. You might want to examine if the city owns any vacant lots in Normandy and turn those into parking. I'm just, and let me see, what else did I have? Oh, I mean, you're going to stop all of economic development if you take away 70 parking spaces in Normandy. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Antonio.
thank you for that, for your comments, Ms. King. Just so you know, we're not adding any traffic calming on the major thoroughfares, which is 71st Street and Normandy, which are state roads. So that I understand your comment about being able to move traffic through the island. The whole purpose of this particular project that we have is to make sure that we install traffic calming devices within the residential areas of the island, which has been the concern from residents in the past. Now, we are going to be looking at different alternatives based on the feedback that we received Again, this is the reason why we're having this meeting with you guys, with the residents, the community that is going to be impacted by this project. We're getting your feedback. We will go back to the drawing board. We'll try to come up with different alternatives, and ultimately try to make a decision that benefits everyone. But I don't want you to think that we're just blindly moving forward and going to install all of the devices. We do understand the impact, which is, like, as Leo mentioned earlier, why we thought it was important for us to come back to you guys and be very transparent, be very open as to what that impact would be, and also get your feedback, and then go back and take it in and see what can be done with that.
Hi, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, the loss of 70 parking spaces, I can't take my car there, and I live on Biscayne Beach, which is just, a mile away or less than a mile away. But the loss of 70 parking spaces would have a huge impact on the businesses that have opened there. Because you have people coming out of the neighborhood and parking in the, on the main thoroughfares. Again, I can't say enough how the loss of 70 parking spaces really will impact Normandy, and that you have to find an alternative before anything starts.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for sharing your concerns. As O'Neill mentioned, they're going to take all this and go back to the drawing board and come up with some alternatives. But thank you.
Well, I think they should consider the 10,000 new residents in North Bay Village and the 4,000 new residences in town center as very much playing into this.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Paul. They will. Thank you. Alrighty. We'll go ahead and move forward with Angel Arrieta. Hello, Angel.
Hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, hi everyone. Well, first I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Angel. I was born and raised in Miami Beach my entire life. I'm 25 years old, and I used to be the senior class president of Miami Beach Senior High, and was also a former employee of the city of Miami Beach 2 years ago, and even a scholarship winner with the Alumni Association from Beach High. So I'm really involved with my community. My best friends and my entire family lives on the beach, including Normandy Isle, and I do appreciate the meeting and everything that was being told and wanting to advertise this project to all of us. However, I do have to agree with everyone else that spoke tonight. I am very disappointed and quite concerned with how the local outreach is being held and the community engagement. I check even the social media for the city like pretty frequently, and I haven't seen any type of advertisement or campaigns about this type of project. And I think we do need to take into consideration the type of demographic that does live in Normandy Isle compared to the rest of Miami Beach. These are people in working class communities, oftentimes don't even speak English. So I am very interested to see what were the studies and the type of polling that was done across Normandy Isle, because I can't imagine that most residents understood what's coming. My best friends that live in Normandy Isle are not even aware of this type of project. And like Richard Steinberg even mentioned, I would also like to see what these analyses are about the speed problems. I do acknowledge that those type of traffic circles and roundabouts can reduce speed, but I don't think we should be risking 69 parking spots for that. You guys mentioned even 72nd Street. I literally live on that street next to the complex that's being built at the moment, and no one's reached out about how my family and I are going to deal with the parking situation. We already struggle so much. The only reason we have access any type of accessible parking throughout the day or night is because North Shore Park is right across from my home, and there's more spaces, but even then we're criminalized with parking tickets because we're not even, in case we miss like an hour of parking, and we've probably spent over hundreds of dollars throughout the years on parking tickets. So I'm even curious to ask who was a communications manager for this type of project, and when is this expected to be promoted across the community? Because honestly, I don't think most people are aware of what's coming. My best friend lives literally on Marcel Drive next to an empty plot of land, and she has to spend over 30 minutes a night after work trying to look for parking. So it's pretty concerning that all we want to do is reduce parking. And I think it's quite, quite an attack on the working class, which is the demographic of Normandy Isle. That neighborhood, which is Fairway Park, there's like a gated community literally um on 71st Street. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. So I don't think it's pretty fair that the people who have more resources, more income, get to be protected from, parking crises, but those that have to already struggle with the rent increases happening across these buildings, now also have to deal with the loss of parking spots. So honestly, I would just like to know who is responsible for the type of public outreach for this type of project, because I do not think this would not benefit the majority of people.
Great. Thank you, Angel. Actually, so to answer the communication question, I'll take that one. I'm part of Neighborhood Affairs. We are a division of the communications and marketing team. So when it comes to social media outreach, again, if you follow our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, we do promote these meetings, especially public meetings, on our city Facebook, and particularly on our Nextdoor page. We always encourage residents to follow either or all of our social media, really, and our Nextdoor page to promote these when we promote these public meetings as such. We also have community advisory. So we do have an email system, and if you're subscribed to our weekly email system, if you get like the biweekly emails or even invites to the events or things like that that the city puts together, that's where we send out the advisories on these projects, or any notification on these projects. Now, as for the individual properties, that type of outreach, it was done through a private PIO consulting firm, that we can check, which building. I believe O'Neill, if you correct me if I'm wrong, they get contacted at every property that was directly impacted by these traffic measures, as well as the community as a whole, for the approval of the project.
Correct.
Correct. Yes. So that's on the communication side. Like I said, we always encourage everyone to follow all of our social media, to subscribe to our emails. I know sometimes they can be quite a bit because almost every department has some kind of email that goes out, but the construction emails, those are the ones that I personally write, and that we disseminate to the community.
Thank you for saying that. However, I would like to also see what you guys look at success when it comes to social media outreach. My current position is with an advertising firm called Ink Global, which is based in Coral Gables, which, I've seen that you have experience with the city of Coral Gables as well. It's a pretty, I work with advertising and marketing, and I know what residents my age and what my local community are involved in. So I'm really curious to see how many people you guys reach out to, how many people are engaged. When I look at the social media platforms, even at a glance, the engagement is not high. So it is concerning that we see that as successful. I know the city of Miami Beach is capable of doing much more. I love my city. I've been here my entire life, and this is why I'm here, wanting to defend my entire community. But honestly, yeah, I would like to see the studies that are being held about community outreach, even through social media, which is probably the biggest way that local government promotes their future projects.
Sure, I can get you the numbers on our Facebook post. I'll speak with our digital media specialist. She can get you the analytics for it, and then I can get you the numbers on Nextdoor, which is what I manage particularly. Yeah, I know you have my email. We've been emailing back and forth just this evening, so I'll go ahead and send you via there. Okay.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And also one more thing about the parking thing, which I don't know if it's anyone's like role here. However, one thing I do think is already kind of insane, if I can say that, is that, North Beach residents, from what I know, because I tried doing it a year and a half ago, can't even get access to residential parking passes, only those that live on South Beach. So I don't really understand why there is a difference in, these social communities. And I don't know what it's based on, if it's based on income or demographic. It's already a struggle for people to have accessibility here. My sister works in Miami Beach. She's a resident as well. And the literal landlord of her job, says that they will tow their cars if they park in the parking lot of Miami Beach and South Beach on 15th and Alton, which I don't think is very justifiable. So I'm pretty concerned how people expect residents to work in their own city, parking in South Beach, and even, in South Beach it's more expensive, but South Beach, yeah, it's about $4 the hour if I'm not if I'm not wrong, which can be up to $40 a day for a local person, leading to almost $200 a week. So if people can't park where they work, I'm not even sure what people are expected to do. Public transportation is improving, but it's not what it could be to deal with the amount of residents coming in. Like I said earlier, there is a huge complex being built on the same street as mine on 72nd Street. And I even reached out to my own apartment management company, asking if there's going to be rental increases where I live, because it is a concern that's happening in Miami Beach. Our rent has been raised. I know this is not the topic of the meeting, but it correlates with everything we're speaking about, because these are just the reality that working class residents like me have to deal with every day. So I'm just really concerned that no one really practically isn't reaching out about the parking crisis. Like Tanya said in the beginning of the meeting, there is a crisis with parking. It's already expensive to own a vehicle. Wages could be higher across everywhere. We all know that. So I would just really appreciate to see a better effort, and would love to be more involved in this outreach, and would like to have the contacts of everyone, and when the future meetings with the public will be held.
Definitely, yeah. So
Angel, if I can just jump in, I'm sorry, I don't see a way to add my contact information to the group, but please give me drop me an email when you have a chance, and let's set up time to talk. It's Tanya, TANYA, at miamibeachfl.gov. Dexter, I don't know if there's a way that you can share that with the participants on the Zoom, but the easiest thing I can tell you right now is that there is a discounted residential parking rate, even if you don't have a permit, which is a whole different conversation, which I'm happy to have with you. That's only $1 an hour. So for your sister who's working at 15th and Alton, and anybody who has that issue, that will make it much more accessible. But please send me an email, and let's get time together. I'll grab a coffee up in North Beach or wherever it's convenient for you, and we'll hash out some of this stuff. And I love to hear your voice. We need more young residents involved, and so let's get together and start making things happen.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. I really appreciate it.
Yep, and it's Tanya with a Y, TANYA, at miamibeachfl.gov.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Alrighty, and we'll move forward with Commissioner Dominguez.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Commissioner. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. And thank you for recognizing this has been a very interesting conversation, and in some bits, a bit of deja vu. Our late Commissioner Mark Samuelin had recognized that community outreach could be done better, and that's why he formed the Ad Hoc Resiliency and Communication Committee. The committee became permanent in December of this year, and while we've been on the phone, I've emailed them as an example of a project where the community was sent notification, and the city on our side has done what we think has given everybody notice, but then the community doesn't really know. And losing 70 spots is quite significant. So I'll see how we can learn from this experience, and the Resiliency Communications Committee can continue to move forward to make it better, communications better. But I appreciate what you're doing in communicating with the residents, and Richard Steinberg, thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it, but I am also on the case and have been working on this. So I'm a little discouraged to see that in your neighborhood, it's still happening, but we'll do our best to get it right.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And we'll move forward with Laura Vaitia.
Thank you, Dexter.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, and thank you everyone for all your feedback. I think it's definitely apparent that the parking would be a drastic impact to the neighborhood, especially on this east end, which is mostly historic buildings that don't have parking and rely on the street parking. They would be affected the most, especially in front of the King Cole, as well as 7207 Bay Drive, or that north end of Bay Drive before you go over the bridge into Normandy Shores. Have you guys thought about doing raised sidewalks where that becomes the speed bump that might keep people from speeding through and creating the same effect of a traffic calming circle?
So raised crosswalks is one of the devices that actually we are using them at other locations in Normandy. Now, based on the study that was performed before, at this particular location, what was identified as the best measure was a traffic circle due to what was observed as part of the analysis. So it is one of the tools that we have to raise crosswalks, and they're being used. But for this particular location, a different device treatment was recommended. So, but rest assured that we are going to be looking at all different alternatives that could be implemented at this particular intersection, and the intersection that are having these impacts to parking, and see if there's any other ones that could be done that will achieve a similar level of traffic calming and minimize impacts to parking, even if that means a deviation from the original recommendations. So we'll discuss that with the city.
And then there are some, thank you, and there are some sidewalks mid-block. Would those be able to be used as the traffic calming measures if you do those raised sidewalks, since there already wouldn't be any impact to parking?
We'll have to see. The thing is, so we'll have to see. That's a location per location basis. And one of the things that I can tell you that we noticed was, just to give an example, as we were talking in the presentation about even parking spaces that are designated today, right? Well, by Florida statute, when you have a crosswalk, within 20 feet of the crosswalk, you cannot have any parking spaces. You should not. But guess what? One thing that we observed in Miami Beach is that there are even existing spaces that are marked that, as we come with the projects and we look at them and evaluate and see that they're non-compliant, we have to eliminate them as well. You see what I mean? So your comment is very appropriate. It's just something that we have to look on a case-by-case basis, because there may be a parking space at a particular location that today people are using it, but then we come and we review it, and then it's not complying anymore. And because of that, it has to be eliminated. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and I understand that as well. At one point, again, back to the Marseille and Bay Drive intersection, it was probably 10 years ago, they had discussed removing the parking there, and the neighborhood really was against it because of the lack of parking. And they kept the parking there. They made it angled parking. They removed a portion of it, which was for the fire hydrant that's located there, and then striped the rest of the parking to make sure residents had parking. Again, if it was a different year build, there's more off-street parking. It would be a great design, but with the lack of parking, you're really going to affect people in that area. So I would recommend looking at places where you can create parking for the neighborhood, even if it were in the commercial districts, because they as well need parking, and it served for the commercial businesses as well as the residents in that historic district. It's not going to affect the single family neighborhoods because they all have their own parking. So those raised traffic calming features, it's going to be minimal impact to those single family neighborhoods. But to this multifamily neighborhood, especially the East End, I think you're really going to heavily impact them with this type of project until you can find alternative parking. So the second thing I wanted to ask you, and I know it's a state road, but I will say that there is a lot of speeding on 71st and Normandy, especially once you get into that single family area. And there are people that are using the crosswalks and people that are using the blocks without the crosswalks. And with those curves, it makes it very dangerous for pedestrian traffic. And people try and speed through there because they feel it's the first thoroughfare before they get to, North Bay Village or down into Collins. So have you guys considered working with the state on what you can do to slow down the traffic on Normandy Drive and 71st Street?
I can answer that question for you. Thank you, Ms. Vieta. And this is Gassan, actually. I want to mention that Florida FDOT is actually working on a study on 71st and Normandy for doing a traffic calming in that area. They are starting it, and they started it, and Commissioner Bott will be involved in that too. So they actually started this comprehensive study a couple months ago, and it's gonna take a little bit of time in order to get it done. I don't have an estimated date when it's gonna be finalized because FDOT does not have that either. But we are working with them. I did some meetings with them. They're adding some crosswalks. They're gonna be something things that are going to be done in the near future and some things that are going to take a little bit longer time. So it's a little bit outside of this project that we're doing right now, but we are working closely with FDOT on that part.
Thank you.
Especially about speeding on 71st, yes.
Well,
And
thank you.
adding crosswalks. And there was a couple fatalities too on 71st, so that's one of the main reasons that was provided to get started.
Yeah, thank you. And with those curves, it's just you have a lot of blind corners, so pedestrians may not necessarily be seen as a car speeding through. So it would be great to address those. And thank you for working with the state on that.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
Thank you very much, Laura. Thank you for your input.
Sure.
Alrighty, and then our last question is from Todd O'Gorman. Hope I said that last name correctly. Todd?
You did correct.
Okay.
Really quick, we've talked 900 Bay Drive quite extensively. And if you look at the January 10th, 23 packet that you sent out, it shows a traffic circle that is to the north and does not affect any of the parking in front of 900 Bay Drive. Whereas the version that you presented tonight shows the 12 parking spaces that are being lost. So I think any response that you got from the building saying that they were okay with it, it might have been kind of misled by the diagram that you presented last year. That's basically all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah, our transportation department they'll check on what exactly was shared with them and how that, if there's any discrepancy with what was presented today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, wait, we do have one more. David Andrade.
Hello?
Hello, David.
Yes, real quick. I saw that some of the traffic calming devices along Marshall Drive did not get approved by, I guess, the residents that live along that road. My question is, could those funds be allocated into fixing the sidewalks along that road?
Well, so the scope of the work and the funds for, I guess, for that particular item is just for this project. The sidewalk work would be a different department, and I know that seems kind of confusing, but it would be for our public works department to manage. If you do have concerns with the sidewalks, feel free to email me, and I can share that with public works, and then we can see what we. There are a couple of sidewalk works taking place as part of our Geo Bond project, so it's something that could be included.
Okay, but through a different project, right? I guess.
Yes, it would be a project through our public works department. Not through
okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, great. And then I'm sorry, I believe Laura raised her hand again. Hi, Laura.
I didn't mean to raise my hand again. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Alrighty, no worries. Perfect. And with that, if there are any more questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. Thank you very much to our transportation team, O'Neill, Franklin, and Gassan, as well as sorry, go ahead, O'Neill.
No, I just wanted to tell the community that we've listened to your comments. I was making notes of each one of your comments. We're gonna go back to the drawing board. This is probably not going to be the last time they're gonna hear from us, since you guys have been very vocal, which we anticipated that would be the case. So thank you for your comments, and we'll take everything into consideration that you said to us, and try to come up with different ideas as to how we can minimize the parking. And Commissioner Bott and Commissioner Dominguez will be also following up with your office on the different components that you brought up in this meeting, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, and as O'Neill mentioned, thank you all for joining us. And again, if there are any other issues, either regarding this project or anything in Normandy or North Beach in general, please feel free to email me. It's dexterperalta@miamibeachfl.gov. I believe if you got the invite for this, you probably have my email at the bottom. If not, you can just feel free to reach out to me. My city cell phone is 786-265-7443. You can feel free to give me a call or shoot me a text. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to Commissioner Tanya K. Bott and Commissioner Laura Dominguez for joining us today. All right, thank you very much. Have a nice evening all.
Thank you.
Thank you.